you've visited this channel before, you may know that I am a big fan of miniatures. I love fairies, not because they can fly, but because they are small. I love stories with small woodland creatures, like Brambly Hedge, and I have a massive collection of dolls and pop-up books that I like because they are miniature versions of real things. And so today, I thought we could talk about the #1 miniature doll, Polly Pocket. But before we talk about Polly Pocket, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor, Pair Eyewear. Pair lets you change the look of your glasses with magnetic top frames. My base frames are the Casper in the color clear with my glasses prescription. It was very easy to do. I just submitted my prescription on the website. They needed my pupil distance, so I was able to just do that with my phone camera. And the base frames start at just $60. I have the top frames Ditzy Doodles in glitter crystal. These were part of the Valentine's Day collection, and so they have little pink glittery hearts all over them. I also got the Flamingo to Blush Gradient Crystal and the Polarized Tortoise Sun Tops. This lets you turn your base glasses into prescription sunglasses. Pair has a truly ridiculous number of top frames. They're constantly coming out with seasonal and limited edition frames, and they even do a lot of collaborations. Their glasses are risk-free with free US shipping and free returns. So you may as well try them. If you're interested, click the link in my description box to shop Pair Eyewear and use code SarahSeraph-GIFT15 to get a free gift with your purchase. Thank you, Pair, for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get into the history of Polly Pocket. The first thing I want to do is shout out this book, The Toys That Made Us, Polly Pocket by Maud Campbell. I don't usually use other people's research, so like if someone has made a video about the same topic that I'm doing, I'm not going to watch that. I prefer using primary sources, articles, TV commercials, interviews from the actual time that the thing is that I'm talking about. What? That made sense. It's fine. But when it came to Polly Pocket, there was weirdly less information online than I thought there would be, and some of the information contradicted itself. So like one article would say one thing, another article would say a slightly different thing, and I saw that this book existed, and I was like, I guess we'll give it a shot, and I think it's a great Polly Pocket resource. She conducted a lot of her own interviews, and I'm confident that the information in this book is correct. So whenever I doubted any articles, I would check this book. There's a lot of stuff in here about the toy industry more broadly, less specific to Polly Pocket, which is not relevant to this video, but is very interesting. And so if after this video you want more Polly Pocket information, I would definitely recommend this book. It only came out at like the end of 2025, so it's still very new. And in her author photo, Maud Campbell is wearing Polly Pocket earrings, which I think is delightful. So Polly Pocket was created by Chris Wiggs, who seemingly avoided the press at all costs. That's his prerogative. Was a bummer that I couldn't see any interviews with him. But the information that I could find out from other people, he's from London. That's right, Polly Pocket is a British brand. I don't know if I knew that information going into this, but now that I've been working on this video, I can't remember what I knew going into this. It feels like I've known all of this forever. But Chris Wiggs dropped out of school at like 15 or 16 years old, and he started doing engineering apprenticeships. He loved tinkering and making things. And at some point he decided that he wanted to start his own business, and he figured it would be better to have a more official degree to go along with that. So he went to the Central School of St. Martin's in around 1975, where he studied industrial design. And there he met his business partner, Chris Taylor. These men are both named Chris, so I will have to full name them every time. It's kind of like how Trixie and Katya are both named Brian. It's like, these are the Polly Pocket creators, the Chris's. But it seems like they were super, super close for decades and decades, had a really good working relationship all the way up until retirement, which is very nice. I like it when people are friends. It's a bummer when people are not friends, and working together can be challenging for a friendship, so I'm glad they remained very close. They founded multiple different businesses together: Taylor Wiggs Industrial Design, then Formec Limited. They invented vacuum forming machines and also incontinence pads. In a quote from Chris Taylor, "Yes, we were one of the first consultancies to work out how to combine starch superabsorbers into nappies. You ended up with this super absorbent product. The problem with that, of course, is that we would have ended up becoming incontinence pad specialists, which wasn't really what we wanted. We wanted something a bit more fun. We knew that the only business where you could get a royalty was toys. In all other design departments, you get an hourly rate. We couldn't see how we could have the indulgent lifestyle we wanted on an hourly rate. So really, the toy industry came by default. Now, it may sound like a pretty sharp pivot to go from incontinence pads to toys, but at this point, they had actually already made a few toys. They had founded Origin Products Limited. I don't really understand enough about the engineering world as to why they needed to create so many different businesses. I don't know if it's like you want to do different types of things under a different name, like when authors have different pen names to write under different genres, maybe? If you know about engineering businesses, please let me know. But at this point, they had already invented plastic briefcases called the Ace Case, which apparently won the Crucible of Creativity Award at the Birmingham Gift Fair in 1981. And through winning that award, they met an agent named Tom Kramer, who helped them make more connections in the toy industry. Also, by this point, they had already made the Orb, which is a Rubik's Cube, but a ball. So at this point, they started working on more toys and licensing these toys to Peter Pan Playthings and Bluebird Toys. The Chris's got along really well with the CEO of Bluebird Toys, whose name was Torquil Norman, and so they ended up licensing a lot of things to Bluebird. First was Manta Force, then later 0 Hour, O Penny, and Polly Pocket. But Chris Wiggs did not initially design Polly Pocket for Bluebird Toys. He originally designed it for his daughter, Kate. So the story goes, in 1983, he was in New York on business, and a receptionist at the company Amtoy gave Chris Wiggs a pin with the phrase, "cute as a button," and that somehow triggered the idea of Polly Pocket. I'm unclear on that. Multiple sources bring up the pin. I'm confident that this pin existed and is in some way connected to Polly Pocket. In my mind, I can't really make the connection as to how this pin inspired it. I guess just the idea of like cute and small? I don't know. Maybe that's the problem, is I don't have a engineer brain. But somehow this business trip, and I guess this pin, inspired him to create Polly Pocket. So when he got home from his business trip, he purchased a makeup compact, which he then hollowed out and spray painted yellow, and designed the inside of the compact to look like the inside of a house. And it all folds up neatly, which means that each side of the compact has to have the opposite depth, I guess. So if you have a wall on one side of the compact, the exact opposite side on the other side has to be flat so that it can close properly. He also made a small wooden doll, which was kind of shaped like a peg. And so he gave this invention to Kate, and she immediately loved it. And she took it with her everywhere because it's very portable. It's a self-contained, very small dollhouse. There's not really a lot of pieces to lose other than the little doll. It's a very clever little toy. It makes sense that an engineer came up with it. And then at this point, he still did not take this toy to Bluebird. It wasn't until years later when he found it at the bottom of his daughter's toy chest where he realized, hey, maybe other kids would like this toy that I made. Which is a crazy thing for a man who invents toys to say. Like, you didn't know? My understanding is that Chris Wiggs just invented a lot of things. He was always tinkering. I guess he didn't think much of it. But finally, at this point, he took the prototype to Torquil Norman, who immediately loved it. And his one note was that it would be nice if the little doll could bend at the waist. So instead of being a solid figure, the doll would have a hinge. So then, after designing several compacts, the toys were manufactured in 1989 and released in 1990. Before the toys went to market, Bluebird approached Mattel to see if they were interested in distribution rights. And Mattel initially passed. They wanted to see how the first year sales were going to be. And then after the first year sales were good, they then agreed to a distribution deal for Polly Pocket. Another toy company with a distribution deal was Bandai, who distributed the toys in Japan. In Japan, Polly Pocket is called Angel Pocket. Angel Pocket! And each toy is colored slightly differently. So they took the same molds and they put different colored plastic into it. I feel like Angel Pocket doesn't look so different from normal Polly Pocket. Like, I don't know why they bothered, but clearly Bandai had their own plans. Polly Pocket then got her own TV commercials. A lot of the Polly Pocket commercials from the 1990s use a theme song to the tune Rockin' Robin. Polly Pocket, Polly Pocket, Polly Pocket, Polly Pocket, Polly Pocket, so small you can take her anywhere. Which was chosen because it is in the public domain. And I swear to God, if I use a clip of this goddamn commercial and I get copyright striked, I'm going to lose my marbles. It's in the public domain. That's the entire point. Sarah, why don't you use as many clips in your videos anymore? Because YouTube is out to get me. Separate from the theme tune, the commercials are great because they show the compacts really close up, which, considering they're only a couple inches big, is kind of important to showcase all the detail in the toys. And the toys also show Polly Pocket in animation. I'm kind of trying to dress like Polly Pocket from this era. She's kind of a challenging character because I wouldn't say that she has like iconic looks necessarily. Polly Pocket has always been much more about the gimmick of the playset versus the doll herself, which isn't a bad thing. It just means that if you're a YouTuber trying to make a costume of her, you don't have great options. But this era of Polly Pocket is very pastel. It has a bit of a vintage aesthetic. It reminds me of like the 50s and 60s when houses would have seafoam green bathrooms and pink kitchens. Polly wears a lot of headbands and pigtails and pastel dresses. But what if you're a little boy and you don't like cute pastel girly things? Well, do I have the spin-off for you. In 1992, Bluebird Toys created Mighty Max, which is Polly Pocket, but for boys.
Mighty Max, Mighty Max!
It's Mighty Max!
Polly Pocket really created a trend of specifically compact toys, but also miniature toys in general. Seemingly every toy brand at this time was making some sort of miniature toy, either based on an original concept or an existing intellectual property. A big one that you might be familiar with is Micro Machines' Star Wars toys, but there were like a million different Polly Pocket knockoffs. I'm mentioning Mighty Max specifically because it is by Bluebird Toys. So to me, it is a direct spin-off of Polly Pocket as opposed to another company's knockoff. So if you're like, why are you talking about Mighty Max but not this thing? That's why. The Mighty Max toys were horror themed. They had doom zones and horror heads. These were compacts that were shaped like snakes and skulls and monsters. And Mighty Max gets slightly more lore. At this point, there isn't really a story around Polly Pocket. She's just a girl with a lot of different houses. But Mighty Max has a magical baseball cap that takes him to fantasy horror lands. And that's why he's a normal little boy in a skull-shaped Frankenstein lair. He's traveled there via baseball cap magic. And Mighty Max also got a TV show in 1993.
Imagine a hat that can take you anywhere. Mighty Max. Weekdays at 7 on TV50.
The concept of this show is that Max is the cap bearer, like the chosen one, but for a hat. And he uses this hat to travel through portals and fight the villain, the Skull Master. This toy line only lasted 4 years, possibly because Bluebird only gave Mattel US distribution rights, which Mattel was already not happy that they did not fully own Polly Pocket. So it's possible they were even more annoyed that their deal for Mighty Max was so limited. And maybe because of that, they did not pour as many resources into the Mighty Max brand, and it thus flopped. I also feel like if you were a little boy who wanted a miniature playset, there were a lot of them at this time that were based around familiar properties and characters. So on the one hand, you could have Magical Baseball Cat Boy, and on the other hand, you could have Pokemon. But it's always hard to tell why a brand fails. And there seems to be a lot of nostalgia for Mighty Max still, in that way that boy toy collectors are. Then, in 1992, Polly Pocket got another spin-off called Lucy Locket. Now, don't be confused. This is not referring to the Polly Pockets that are lockets, which also existed. They were like a tiny little Polly Pocket playset on a sad little cord that you could wear as a locket. There were also Polly Pocket rings. I'm not talking about any of those. I'm talking about Lucy Locket, who is a bigger Polly Pocket.
I'm Polly Pocket, and this dream home belongs to my friend Lucy Locket.
Lucy Locket was introduced as Polly Pocket's big sister, and instead of being about 1 inch tall, she's about 4 inches tall. She looks kind of like a Barbie Kelly doll, Barbie's little sister Kelly, but weirdly she predates Kelly by like a few years. I hate this type of doll. This little hideous gremlin child. Sorry if you're a big Kelly collector. I think they look bad. But Lucy Locket had a few massive play sets, because obviously to fit a 4-inch doll, it has to be orders of magnitude bigger than the normal Polly Pockets. She had a massive heart-shaped clamshell house which was her dream home. Then she also had a pet salon, a hair salon, and a dream cottage. This brand was short-lived, probably because she's so big. A large part of the appeal for Polly Pocket is how small and portable she is. You cannot lug around Lucy Lockett's playsets. And if you're gonna get something that big, you may as well just get a normal dollhouse. Speaking of dollhouses, in 1994, Polly Pocket launched Pollyville. These were playsets that looked more like traditional dollhouses, so they weren't the clamshell compact. They were little buildings that opened up, and you could collect them all and create your own Polly Pocket town. Also in 1994, Mattel made a Stacy Polly Pocket doll. So Stacy is one of Barbie's sisters, and they made a Polly Pocket themed Stacy doll who has pockets all over her clothes that come with little Polly Pocket figurines and a backpack that folds out into a tiny Polly Pocket playset. I think this is so fun. There's something so 90s about it. I say something. Everything is very 90s about it. How much is she on eBay? Hold on. Pause everything. Oh, you can get one for like $40. I will say, I don't love Stacy. I mean, she's not as bad as Kelly, but basically all of Barbie's younger sisters, I'm like, ooh, I wish you didn't have that face. I wish you looked different. Something to think about, though. Something to ponder. Weirdly, and I feel bad admitting this, weirdly, while working on this video, I was like, are there any Polly Pockets that I need to buy while I'm like researching this video and looking at all these Polly Pockets? And the answer was kind of no. I don't know. They're kind of so small that I feel like they're not amazing display pieces, at least for how my display is. I know that I have my massive pop-up book collection, and obviously those are just on the bookshelf, and it's not as though I'm displaying all of them opened up. But I find those sort of more magical and exciting and impressive versus a Polly Pocket compact, which is like tiny. And you open it up and you're like, oh, that's cool, but it's not like, whoa, you know? I feel like such a fake Polly Pocket fan. I feel like such a poser. I thought I'd come away from this buying like 1,000 Polly Pockets, and that is not the direction that we went. I just have different things I would rather buy. I'm embarrassed. I feel like now you're not going to take me seriously. Okay. Then, in 1995, there was another Polly Pocket spinoff, this time a collaboration with Disney. These were sold under the name Disney Tiny Collection.
Magical stories for you to share. The Disney Tiny Collection takes you there. The new Disney Tiny Collection. Pocahontas, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. You can collect them all. Houses and play cases sold separately.
And they were distributed by Mattel, but produced by Bluebird Toys. So again, I feel like they count. Interestingly, Bluebird made a deal for the entire Disney portfolio, not just one movie. Especially at this time, if you were a toy brand making Disney toys, you would be making toys for whatever movie had just come out. You weren't going to come out with a line of toys for every Disney movie ever. Now, with where the Disney brand is, and especially franchises like Disney Princess, you can just find toys for a lot of Disney properties at any given time. But that was not a common way to do things back in 1995. But it's exciting. It means that we have a lot of Disney Tiny Collection toys for less common movies. There's a lot that do feel very 90s. Like, if they were making these today, I don't think they would do Hunchback of Notre Dame. But that was a new movie at the time. This line had a combination of clamshell playsets and the larger building-shaped playsets. And by larger, I mean smaller, larger, and also bigger, larger. Like, there's sort of a spectrum of sizes with the building size playsets. And I have here with me today my childhood Sleeping Beauty clamshell playset. My mom and I were speculating. We have no earthly idea why or how I have this. The copyright on this says 1996. I was not alive then. I only watched Sleeping Beauty recently for my Disney Princess movie ranking video, which you people hate. You hate that video. You think that all of my Disney movie opinions are terrible, which I didn't think they were controversial, but apparently they are. But however I got it, this was the Polly Pocket that I had as a kid. And my mom and I are pretty confident it's the only one I had. Again, don't know how or why it ended up being this, but it is. This playset has the forest and the little cottage with the fairies. Then the castle, there's a spinning wheel up at the very top, and then a bed where Sleeping Beauty can dramatically fall asleep. And there's the thorny vines that can close up over the castle along the side and on the bottom side of the drawbridge. Embarrassingly, because I was a nerdy little child, a combination of reading younger than average and playing with toys older than average meant that at the time that I was playing with this playset, I, in my mind, was imagining that this was a Harry Potter playset. I would imagine that the vines off to the side were the Forbidden Forest, and the little cabin was Hagrid's hut, the main part of the castle was the Great Hall, the bed was the Gryffindor common room, and the spindle area up at the top was Dumbledore's office, and that would have been the perch for Fawkes the Phoenix. Obviously, that franchise has not aged well now. Now it just makes me sad. Trans rights are human rights. But I had fun with it at the time. The only figure that I have remaining is the Aurora figure, but this originally also came with the prince and a little baby in a little baby bassinet, cradle, crib, one of those words. The problem with Polly Pocket is that they're very small, and so you can lose them extremely easily. Chris Taylor said in a quote that they used to joke that they were sponsored by Hoover. They're the toy brand that you vacuum up. They also did not sell replacement parts. I think the logic was that they wanted you to buy a whole new set if you lost some of the pieces, but I feel like people probably weren't going to do that. I feel like they could have made bank of just selling a bunch of little Polly Pocket figures and replacement parts and sell them for more than they're worth, obviously, but that was not their strategy. So the figures are hard to come by. Then, in 1996, they made pop-up book play sets, which was crazy. Imagine you're me, who collects pop-up book play sets, and you're researching Polly Pocket, and you find out that they made pop-up book play sets. A thing that not enough people make. I was so excited, and then I realized that they're a little bit lame and extremely expensive on the secondhand market. And then I kind of deflated. These were mini pop-up books, and they opened up into a little playset, and they came with a Polly Pocket figure. The idea being that you would play with this little Polly Pocket figure in this little pop-up book. They made 4 of these pop-up books: Polly at the Beach, Polly's Palace, Polly Goes Shopping, and Polly at Animal World. And I feel like, I don't know if maybe the pop-up technology wasn't as good back then, or if there were manufacturing constraints, maybe because they're so small. The pop-up element of these is not terribly impressive. I feel like all of the pop-up elements are extremely shallow. It looks like you could just barely perch that Polly Pocket figure on the ledges of the pop-up book. I don't know, it's cool that they exist, but as a pop-up book connoisseur, I was a little bit underwhelmed. And they're like $1 million on eBay. It's like, I don't like it that much. Also in the 90s, there were Polly Pocket comics and magazines. These are kind of annoying to research because you get a lot of other garbage in the search results. I believe a lot of these were exclusive to the UK or other European countries, which that also does not help the research process. I feel like a lot of brands that I've talked about, especially ones that had a presence in like the 90s or 2000s, had a magazine. And the magazines are always kind of equivalent in quality. That is to say, not that interesting looking. I mean, I'm sure if you're a small child, you're like, woo, exciting magazine. But I feel like a lot of these magazines that I've looked at are sort of just generically kid magazines that are loosely branded to whatever thing it's branded to. But again, I was having trouble finding a ton of images from these. If you remember buying these, I would love to hear your thoughts about them. And I'd also like to know which country you were getting them in, because I'm confident on the UK. I'm much less confident about anywhere else. Then, in 1998, we had a big brand shakeup. So, by 1997, Polly Pocket sales had fallen. Bluebird Toys, the toy company generally, not just Polly Pocket, but I think this is still an indication of how things were going, their profits had slumped from £17 million to £9.9 million. So not quite cut in half, but pretty close. I sort of got the feeling that Bluebird Toys as a business hadn't been doing amazingly before Polly Pocket came out. And then Polly Pocket came out, she did amazing, and she kind of kept Bluebird afloat for a time, but that time was now over. So then Mattel swooped in and bought Bluebird Toys. There was a little bit of I wouldn't call it a bidding war, but there was another business that was considering buying Bluebird Toys, and then in the end decided not to. Partially because buying Bluebird Toys did not include the rights to Polly Pocket, Origin, the company founded by the Chris's, still own the rights to Polly Pocket. So buying Bluebird, you still had to work with Origin, and you still did not fully own Polly Pocket, which is obviously the whole reason you would be buying Bluebird. She was like the biggest thing they had. But Mattel was still willing to buy them out. I think partially because they had been selling Polly Pocket for this long without owning the IP. I'm sure they were like, at least if we own Bluebird, there will be one less factor involved. Also in the late 90s, Mattel was buying a lot of brands. I think they were just on a spending spree. This is also when they bought Pleasant Company, the creators of American Girl doll. So I think also just the company's MO at the time was buying out smaller companies. So then Mattel started selling Polly Pocket with a lot more control over her overall design and brand direction. For a period of time, they were still selling the original 1-inch sized Polly Pocket compacts. 1 inch meaning the doll was 1 inch, not that the compacts were 1 inch. But they started simultaneously selling a spin-off redesign called Fashion Polly. This was in 1999, and these Pollys were more focused on fashion. The dolls were now 3 3/4 inches tall and proportioned much more like a Barbie doll. So like Lucy Locket had been 4 inches tall, but she was proportioned like a little hideous child. Fashion Polly was proportioned much like a Barbie. This meant that Polly now needed bigger play sets. So Fashion Polly didn't have compacts. She had just more traditional doll play sets, more building shaped. And of course, she had fashion. She could be dressed in rubbery clothes made of a substance called kraton. These are the Polly Pocket clothes that kids loved chewing on. I think if you're my age, this is the Polly Pocket that you probably have nostalgia for. Like when I bring up to people that I'm researching Polly Pocket, they're like, oh my god, I love chewing on those rubbery clothes. The story of how these clothes were invented is a fun full circle moment. So if you remember Torkil Norman, the CEO of Bluebird Toys, he had a son named Casey Norman, and he had founded his own toy company called Genie Toys. They were creating a brand called Fashion Annie, and they needed a substance to make the clothes out of that was maneuverable but durable, and they ended up creating kraton. I don't really understand how patents work. Whenever law comes up in these videos, I get very confused. My friend just graduated law school. I guess I could bother her about it. I think they invented kraton, copyrighted it, patented it, whatever. But you, as another company, could like pay for the rights to use this material. Like it wasn't exclusive to Genie Toys. Obviously, because Mattel used it for Polly Pocket. But also generally, I think other companies used it as well. I don't really understand how that works from a legal perspective. I'm realizing now that I maybe don't even care though. Probably you don't care. Probably you're like, please move on. This is not interesting. I do remember that there were Disney princess little fashion dolls that had the little rubbery clothes, and I think I had a set of those that was Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Again, a movie I had not watched until I was doing the Disney Princess movie video. I was a timid child. Most movies were scary, but I don't know how or why I acquired that either. But I do remember Belle having all those outfits in the little rubbery material, like her green dress and maybe like a red cape. Some of the less iconic Belle looks were included in this. So this style of doll with the little rubbery clothes was really a phenomenon for a period of time. And Mattel was creating Fashion Polly simultaneously with the original 90s style small plastic Polly, but by 2003, Fashion Polly took over. She was no longer referred to as Fashion Polly, she just was now Polly Pocket. It is kind of a sad transition, kind of bittersweet, because obviously the entire point of the brand up until now had been more so the playset element, the compacts, and to a lesser extent the buildings. Polly was still big into playsets at this time, but they were different playsets. Not as compact, not as portable, not really the original vision of the brand. It's interesting that they transitioned Polly into more of a fashion doll. I mean, it is Mattel, and they do make Barbie, and that's Barbie's whole thing, but it was a bit of a departure. Also during this time, Polly Pocket enters the digital age. She gets a website in the year 2000. This is another thing where Barbie had a website, so I guess we should give Polly Pocket a website. This website had Flash games. I have never played these games in my life. They are not familiar to me at all. I don't know how this whole era of Polly Pocket completely passed me by. I was definitely the prime demographic for it, so I don't know what happened. I guess I was too busy on the American Girl doll website. And then speaking of games, in 2003, Polly Pocket got a Game Boy Advance game. It was called Super Splash Island, and the premise is that Polly and her friends go and visit a water park, and there's like platformer mini games where you're like swimming around in the pool or whatever. Why is this what game they made? Like, why? It could have been anything. Why was it this? I guess maybe Polly Pocket did have quite a few water-based playsets, like pools and water slides and mermaids. Oh my god, there were a lot of mermaid Polly Pockets. Polly Pockets that had color change technology with hot or icy water. So maybe they felt like Polly Pocket going to a water park was in keeping with a lot of her water-themed playsets. I don't know. To me, it seems so random. But also, at this point, Polly didn't really have, like, a story. There wasn't really Polly Pocket lore. There wasn't a lot to base a Polly Pocket game off of, other than the fact that, like, she's a girl, and she goes to the mall, and she goes swimming. Like, she didn't have a lot going on. But still, a water park-themed game. Why? Then, in 2004, we get another evolution of the Polly Pocket clothes with Quick Click.
Quick Click, House of Style!
Instead of rubbery clothes, Polly now has plastic clothes that are hard plastic and come in two pieces and attach on either side of her body with magnets. The idea being that it would be easier to dress her that way and more fun and exciting because it was like instant. But I'm sure some of you can see where this is going because you are not supposed to put magnets in kids' toys, especially very small magnets. Very small, very powerful magnets in toys for small children because kids can very easily swallow them or breathe them in. The magnets are in the casing of the hard plastic, but the plastic can break, the magnet can come loose. And magnets, their whole thing is that they're going to try and stick together, even if, let's say, a child's internal organs are in the way. So if a child swallows more than one magnet, they might try to stick together on either side of the stomach or the intestine or the esophagus, or I'm just naming body parts that I know about. Subtle flex, I know multiple internal organs. But these magnets can perforate this tissue, cause a hole, and even cause a blockage. So, very dangerous. Don't want to put magnets in children's toys. And so, Mattel had to issue several recalls between 2006 and 2007. The first recall was in 2006 after several injuries. And then there was a massive recall in 2007. This included a lot of Polly Pocket, but also some other Mattel toys that had magnets and some that had lead paint. Not lead paint, but like paint that had more lead than we really feel comfortable about. And this 2007 recall seemed to be more preventative. It wasn't because of child injuries. But this ended up being millions of toys that were recalled. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says 7.3 million Polly Pocket toys were recalled in August of 2007. So like in total, a lot of toys. At first, Mattel tried to let their Chinese manufacturer take the blame, and when looking in old articles about these recalls, there's a lot of anti-Chinese manufacturing sentiment. Like, we shouldn't be manufacturing toys in China, China's bad, look at what they've done with these Polly Pocket toys. And then China came out and was like, this is Mattel's fault. These were Mattel's designs. We don't appreciate you guys blaming us. And then Mattel had to apologize and be like, sorry, China, it was in fact our fault. Please, let's continue having a positive working relationship. Then, also in 2004, Polly Pocket got her first animated special called Polly Pocket Lunar Eclipse. This was a 22-minute direct-to-DVD special and her debut in animation and kind of the first big chunk of lore we get about Polly, other than whatever happened to be in those comics that I can't find. So we learned that Polly is fabulously wealthy. We open with her riding in a limo driven by her butler Samuel, and she's returning from a trip to Italy. Her father is an extremely wealthy businessman, and she visits him and travels around the world. I find this characterization interesting, and it makes me think of Barbie, and how for Barbie has always been a fashion doll. Barbie as a brand has always been much more about the doll, the character of Barbie, her fashion, her as a character doing different jobs, whereas Polly has always been much more about play sets. Cool locations, cool forms of transportation. She gets a lot of like cars and planes and stuff. Houses, stores, malls, water parks. So if you're taking the play pattern of these dolls, this characterization of Polly makes sense to me. It makes sense that Polly would be a wealthy jet setter versus Barbie, who's characterized much more as like this fashionista. It reminds me of Barbie Life in the Dream House, which is like 10 years after this. But Barbie Life in the Dream House has a lot of sort of meta tongue-in-cheek references to Barbie as a brand. And in that show, she's living in this massive mansion dream house with this seemingly endless closet with her giant collection of clothes, which makes sense for who Barbie is as a doll and how you play with her and how she had been sold up to that point. And so this is sort of similar, but for Polly. She's much more location-based. But it is funny to have the first piece of information that you learn about Polly be that apparently this whole time she's been like a billionaire heiress. But Polly is very nice and friendly. She has 4 friends. And it's kind of the thing where she has so many friends that none of them really get that much characterization. It's like, here's Polly and here's her group of friends, which Polly and her friends are in a band together called Polly and the Pockets, which I feel like emphasizes the extent to which her friends don't matter as individuals. Like, I don't know if I would want to be a band where I'm like one of the Pockets. Sarah and the Seraphs. Now I'm imagining myself as a pop star with my nondescript girl group. But Polly Pocket's band is, I don't know how successful. I don't think they're like commercially success. I don't think they're like an actual band. I think this is like a hobby that Polly Pocket has, but because she's fabulously wealthy, they're able to take it like very seriously and spend a lot of money on it. It's not really a casual garage band vibe. It is much more of a pop star vibe. But I feel like that is a thing that happens with like celebrities' kids or like wealthy people's kids, where they're able to have a hobby that they're interested in as like a teenager and then like make it happen in a much more serious way than any normal person would ever be able to. But Polly and the Pockets are going to be playing at the school dance. Then Polly and her friends get a group project assignment. They have to write about the lunar eclipse. Not the lunar eclipse, a lunar eclipse. Or just like lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses is the theme of the project. And Polly's friend Lila has to get a good grade on this project, or else she will be grounded, and thus unable to play in the school dance performance. And so the girls do a little bit of research and find out that there's going to be a lunar eclipse the next day, that weekend, soon, but it's on the other side of the world. And Polly's like, don't worry about it, girls. We're going to take my private jet to my dad's island, and then we can watch the actual lunar eclipse. And that will make our project so much better that will guarantee that Lila will get an A. Which I feel like if I were the teacher grading that, I'd be like, great. Polly went on another international trip for her school project. Your bibliography is still formatted wrong. Your header isn't in proper MLA format. But I'm glad you got to go on an international getaway. Meanwhile, there is a mean girl at their school named Beth. And Beth's whole thing is that she's really jealous of Polly Pocket. She hates coming in second. Polly is always the best and the most popular and gets the best grades, and Beth is jealous of her. And so she wants to sabotage this school project because then Polly and her friends won't be able to play at the dance. So she gives Lila a camera to borrow so that she could take pictures of the lunar eclipse, but she has tampered with the camera. So this is a sabotage camera. Then the girls fly to the island. Surprise! They have now built a water park on this island. I'm unclear on that. Is this island like a tourist destination? It must be. It can't be that this is just a private water park for Polly and her friends. This must be some sort of tourist island. Maybe it's one of those islands that cruise ships dock at, like how the Disney Cruise Line owns their own islands. Do people live on this island? Are they happy about this water park? I don't know. Obviously, the point of the water park is to sell water park Polly Pocket playsets. So, you know, we just have to fit in a lot of different fun locations for Polly to visit. We enjoy the water park, then it's time for the lunar eclipse. Each girl is going to capture some of the data, but then they get distracted by a dolphin. And this dolphin has been trapped by low tide, and the tide's going to get even lower. So the dolphin is going to be like beached on the Polly Pocket private island. And so the girls then work together to rescue the dolphin. They're able to identify an archway that the dolphin can swim through. This is all as the lunar eclipse is happening. So not everyone is able to take all the measurements that they need to, but I guess we are able to handle it just like some of the girls. And then we fly back home. This is when we realize, oh no, this camera has been tampered with and all of the great lunar eclipse photos we took are double exposed. Lila left a used roll of film in there, and she lied and she said that it was a fresh roll of film, so all of the photos are messed up. And Lila's like practicing her part of the speech, and she's like, my part of the speech is lame. If only I had those photos. A picture really is worth 1,000 words. Wah wah. And then Polly's like, girls, I have an idea. And she has the girls create new visuals for their presentation. I think at this point they're just drawings of the beach and the lunar eclipse. And they bring like disco lights with them. And they're like, wow, aren't lunar eclipses cool? And everyone in the class is like, yeah, they are cool. What a hip-hoppin' presentation. And so they all get an A+, and they are able to perform at the dance. And there is, I believe, an original song that is written for this movie that is performed by Polly. Clearly not the voice actress of Polly, but just like some other woman. The end. This special is kind of goofy, but it's not that long. A good amount of things happen in it. I didn't mind it that much. I thought it was fine. It is funny that this is our first Polly Pocket narrative. And this sort of starts the trend of Polly Pocket being quite fantastical. Polly Pocket's world is not super grounded, and I would say that that increases as the brand continues. Then in 2005, we get Polly Pocket Too Cool at the Pocket Plaza. We get a updated animation style, which I don't like as much. The faces look not as good. It's a little bit less sleek. The colors are a little bit more muted. It's not bad. It's just not my favorite. This is another 22-minute special. So again, not that long. We start out with Polly telling her friends that her dad is going to be opening Pocket Plaza, the first 6-star hotel. And Polly invites all of her friends to come to the grand opening party. And they make sure to mention that all proceeds from this event are going to charity. And Polly's band is going to get to play at the party. They're going to be the opening act for rock star Eric Wilder. This party is also going to be broadcast on TV, I guess. So their band gets to play on TV. Again, I'm sort of unclear as to how established and serious this band is. This is not quite the Hannah Montana fantasy of what if you were a normal girl in school and also a pop star, but it does feel like sort of a precursor to that idea. Like, she's a pop star, but just some of the time. Also, Polly is going to have to give a speech at this party. And so Beth, of course, wants to embarrass Polly at this party. And so she's scheming and trying to figure out a way to do that. Then, because this party is such a big deal, Polly's cousin Pia is going to be visiting from England. And she is Polly's identical cousin, which is, not how genetics works, I don't think. But Pia has apparently always wanted to be in a band. That's her heart's truest desire. She really wants to perform with Polly in the Pockets at this event. Which in my mind, I'm like, that's kind of rude to ask that. We don't even know each other. I mean, she knows Polly, but she doesn't know the Pockets, I don't think. And she's like, hey, can I butt in on your band? I have 0 experience. I play the violin, but can somehow do nothing else musical. She is completely tone deaf when it comes to every other instrument and also singing. But I'd love to be in a band, and not just a normal band, a band that's going to be playing on television at this giant event. But Polly and her friends are very nice, so they all say yes. Unfortunately, Pia's caregiver, I don't think she's her mom, and I don't think she's like a grandma. Because I don't think Polly ever acts like they're related. I think she's just like some lady here to take care of Pia. Her name is Mrs. Throckmorton. And I was like, Throckmorton? Isn't that name that they use as sort of a meme in like math problems? But Mrs. Throckmorton thinks that joining a band is undignified and she doesn't want Pia to do it. So then the girls come up with a scheme where they're going to have Pia and Polly pretend to be each other so that they can swap places and fool Mrs. Throckmorton. So they give Pia a makeover so that she looks identical to Polly, like change her hair. And then Polly will be on one side of the room working on her speech, and Pia will be trying to practice with the band, and Miss Throckmorton will come in and be like, "Why are you practicing with that band?" And then Pia will pretend to be Polly and be like, "I mean, it's my band," doing a fake American accent. And Miss Throckmorton will be like, okay. It's very Parent Trap. It's very Princess and the Pauper / Princess and the Pop Star, I guess, also. And then Beth overhears Polly and Pia talking about swapping places. And she's like, perfect. So now, if I can just expose that they've been swapping places, then Miss Throckmorton will get involved and mess up their whole plan. And I can keep Polly from attending this party, and then Pia will have to pretend to be Polly and thus embarrass herself because she is not musically talented enough to pretend to be Polly, the lead singer of the band. And she also is not going to be capable of giving a speech. So Beth mentions in front of Mrs. Throckmorton, she's like pretending to talk to her friends. She's like, "Oh, I'm so excited to see Polly and the Pockets and their new band member, Pia." And Miss Throckmorton is like, "I knew some hijinks were going on." And then so she goes to find Pia, but she instead finds Polly, but she thinks that Polly is Pia pretending to be Polly instead of just that it is actually Polly. And she like grabs Polly and takes her back to the hotel room, and she's now grounded. Which I guess this whole plan hinged on Miss Throckmorton accidentally grabbing the wrong girl. Because, like, if she had successfully found Pia and taken Pia back to the hotel room, the plan would not have been ruined. Polly would have still just performed in the band and given the speech. So I guess it was lucky for Beth that Miss Throckmorton thought that Polly was Pia pretending to be Polly. I'm surprised that her plan wasn't just get them all grounded. Like, get them all in trouble for doing this ruse. I guess maybe Miss Throckmorton doesn't have authority over Polly, so that wouldn't have happened. I don't know. A lot of identity hijinks in this movie. So then Pia has to pretend to be Polly, and she gives the speech. She's apparently a very nervous public speaker, because she's completely useless to us. There's nothing she can do competently. She has a little earpiece in, and so Polly tries to, like, call her on the phone and read the speech to her, but Miss Throckmorton makes Polly hang up the phone. And so then Pia improvises a speech, but she's doing it in her normal voice, so she's doing it in a British accent. And it's like, that doesn't make sense. Polly Pocket does not have a British accent. I feel like everyone would be like, why is Polly pretending to be British? That's so weird. Which Pia had successfully done an American accent earlier while they were pretending to be each other. I think probably the movie makers were thinking the small children are going to be confused if she's doing an American accent. They're going to think that she's Polly. I don't know. But then Miss Throckmorton realizes her mistake. She apologizes. She lets Polly go. Then Polly and her band get to perform. Pia plays the violin, which you cannot hear a violin in this song. And she's wearing like a Spice Girls like Union Jack outfit. And everything works out. The end. I did not like this movie as much. I think because I found Pia kind of annoying, and I found this whole like swapping plot not that interesting. It felt more tedious. Like it was the same stuff happening over and over again. It felt longer. And then in 2006, we get an hour-long movie called Pollyworld. Pollyworld originally aired on Nickelodeon and then was released on DVD. The girls are all a fan of this reality show that's similar to Wipeout, kind of. And it is revealed that the next episode of this show is going to take place at the new Pollyworld theme park. And all of the contestants are going to be Polly and all of her classmates. And instead of them winning money, they are raising money for charity, which means that this trip to be on this reality show somehow counts as a community service credit. Their teacher said that, and I was like, that's insane. Oh, what are you going to do for your community service credit? Oh, I'm going to go on Naked and Afraid and earn money for charity. Naked and Afraid's a bad example. I'm talking about students. Also, don't you, like, not even earn money on Naked and Afraid? What a pointless show. Anyway, where was I? So, Polly and all of her classmates show up at Pollyworld. Each of them gets a fancy little PDA so they can receive updates about the competition. That's not really important. I just felt like it was very 2006. I wanted to mention it. And then Polly goes out with her dad. This is our first introduction to Polly's dad. And he introduces his new fiance, Lorelai. And Polly is like, kind of weirded out. This is very sudden. She's never heard of this woman before. Lorelai is being a little bit too nice considering they don't know each other, like wants to be her new mom kind of a vibe. But then Polly has to leave and take part in the first challenge. The first challenge is a hula contest. They have to hula while balancing and being shot at with a water gun. And Beth wins the first challenge. Beth, of course, wants to win, and she wants Polly to be humiliated, which then Beth overhears Lorelai talking on the phone, and Lorelai says that she doesn't want to have to compete with Polly for the dad's attention, and she wants to get Polly sent to a boarding school. And Beth is like, this is perfect. Someone else who doesn't like Polly. So Beth is like, I want to help with your plan. And Lorelai is like, you are a child. I don't need your involvement. And Beth is like, well, if you don't let me help, then I'm going to tell Polly's dad. And Lorelai's like, okay, fine. Then Lorelai and Polly's dad take all the girls out for the evening. The girls meaning Polly and her friends. Polly in the Pockets. Polly still feels weird and awkward about the whole thing, but her friends later advise her to try and be friends with Lorelai. Try to get to know her. So then the girls take Lorelai out, and Polly tells all of her friends about her plan for the next event. They need to distract Beth, and the best way to do that is to embarrass Polly or make things look like they're going bad for her, because Beth loves that. So the plan is to stage a fake fight where all of Polly's friends are going to yell at her during the next challenge. And this works, and Polly's team wins the next challenge because Beth is too distracted, being like, yes, they're yelling at her. Meanwhile, Lorelai is talking to Polly's dad, and she's like, I'm really worried about Polly. She's under a lot of stress. She has a lot going on in her life. I was like that too when I was her age, and if my parents hadn't stepped in, I don't know what would have happened. And then the dad sees Polly and her friends fighting, and he's like, uh-oh, maybe something is wrong. And he's like, what did your parents do to intervene? And Lorelai's like, I'm so glad you asked. They sent me to a boarding school. Then later, Polly tries to sneak away to buy her dad an engagement present, but her dad is suspicious. He's like, why is my daughter acting weird? And Polly is in the car with Samuel, the butler/driver, driving to go get an engagement present. And he's like, I don't know, maybe you should give Lorelai a chance. It would be nice for you to have a mother figure. And she's like, I don't need that. I have you and dad and all of my friends. And Samuel feels kind of bad about this. He's like, she deserves a real mom, as opposed to me, a man who is her employee. Which then Lorelai runs into Samuel and is like, you know, I'm really trying to be a mom for Polly, but I don't know if she has room in her life for another parental figure with you around. And Samuel's like, you're right. I am too much of a parental influence on Polly. I should leave. Which, like, I don't know. It's a weird power dynamic of, like, he's their employee, but he's also with Polly more than anyone else. She is very close with him. It reminds me of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, of London Tipton being this, like, rich heiress who never gets to see her dad. And Mr. Mosby, their, like, employee who watches over her, is way more of a father figure than her father actually is. So Samuel says that he's leaving. Polly is super upset, feels super betrayed. I think she says something along the lines of, like, doesn't he care about us anymore? It's like, I mean, it is weird. You are paying him. I understand that this is not a typical relationship, but he is allowed to leave if he wants to. And then Polly's dad makes everything even worse by telling her that he's going to send her to boarding school on Monday. Like, immediately. Which Polly is, of course, super upset, but her and her friends decide to make the most of their last weekend together. She's like, we'll figure it out. It'll probably be super strict at first, but then I'll be able to come visit you guys all the time. We're still gonna be friends. We could still have the band. But for right now, let's just try and appreciate our time together. Polly is a very positive person. I did always like Polly in all of these specials. Then during the next event, Beth taunts Polly about her having to go to boarding school. Like, how can you focus on anything when you have to go to boarding school? Ha ha! Your life is ruined. And Polly's like, how do you know about that? And she realizes that Lorelai told Beth about boarding school because Lorelai and Beth are in cahoots. Which, meanwhile, one of Polly's friends has been filming all day, like, to capture their last weekend together as friends. And so they have footage of Beth and Lorelai scheming in the background of some shot. And they're somehow able to, like, enhance the audio. And you can hear Lorelai admitting that she wants to get Polly sent away. Which, as someone who sometimes has to clean up audio, no, you couldn't. You couldn't do that. Initially, Polly wants to show this footage to her dad to be like, hey, this woman isn't who you thought she was. But then she decides against it. She's like, I don't want to upset him. He's really in love with her. I don't want to ruin that. And I don't want to fight to stay if they don't want me here. And Polly's friends are like, okay, I guess. Then the last event in this competition is a talent show. That does not seem to be the vibe of this show. Obviously, we're just doing a talent show so that Polly and the Pockets get to perform. Every special has to end with Polly and the Pockets performing. But then Beth uses a trap door to trap Polly and her friends in the basement. But just in time, they are able to find a lever that brings them back up to the stage, and they do a performance. It's obviously amazing. And Beth is now freaking out. She's like, Polly's gonna win. She has not been humiliated. So she grabs Lorelai. The two of them go up into the control room, like the control room for the stage. And Beth is trying to blackmail Lorelai into making sure that her team wins. She's like, I'm gonna expose that you were scheming to get rid of Polly, unless if you somehow, unclear on how, make my team win this competition. But of course, because they were in the control room, they have been broadcasting this conversation to everyone. They are now exposed. So Polly's dad breaks up with Lorelai. Beth is humiliated. A different team wins. Polly's team doesn't win. An all-boy team wins after their talent of skateboarding on, like, ramps. It feels very Camp Rock, of like, none of our main characters win. It was this third other character who won. And now everything is back to normal. The end. These were pretty good, I felt like, for what they were. I don't know why it's these 3 random DVD specials. 22 minutes, 1 hour, cumulatively not a lot of content. I don't know if they didn't think that Polly needed, like, her own TV show. I mean, Mighty Max got a TV show. I don't know. They were like, our first ever Polly animation, Polly narrative is gonna be this stuff. Then, a few years later, in 2010, we get another rebrand. So Polly gets a different art style, different color scheme, and Polly Pocket now has webisodes. Because, you know, it's 2010. Every doll brand's getting webisodes. There are 100 episodes that are each about 2 minutes long. The first season is 2D Flash animated, and it looks kind of janky and bad. Not that bad, but not great. I think the art style is cute. I think the way that they move is weird. And then they switch to CGI 3D animation, which also doesn't look great. Which Strawberry Shortcake Berry Bitty Adventures is around this time, and that's about as good as this looks. I'd say Polly Pocket looks a little worse. These are very short webisodes, so they're pretty uninteresting. The one interesting thing that happens is that we introduce cutants. This is a portmanteau of the words cute and mutants. These are mutant creatures from different worlds. The worlds are Splashtopia, Goody, and Electropop. So, like, we have Bearabubble, which is a bubble that is also a bear, and Pretzelfly, which is a pretzel butterfly, and Owlelectric Guitar, who's an electric guitar who's also an owl. So these creatures from these different worlds. I don't know why they did this. This is so weird. This is so weird. It has nothing to do with anything Polly Pocket has previously ever done. She's never been, like, a creature brand. She's never had, like, sidekick, like, animal friends or anything. Also, the idea of the cutants is so random. It's like object plus animal. That's nothing. It's not even like objects or animals that are like go together or aesthetically appealing or like interesting in any way. It kind of reminds me of Disney has those creatures. I don't even know if they still sell them. The little mutant creatures where it's like, it's a Disney character and also a food. That's another thing where you're like, why? For whom? At least then it's like, well, if you're a fan of Stitch, then you might, I guess, be interested in the Stitch pineapple upside down cake plush. It seems unlikely that you would be, but maybe. This, it's like, why would you care about a pretzel butterfly? The only theming is the worlds that they come from. So like vaguely music themed, vaguely water themed, vaguely food themed. I mean, I guess not vaguely. I guess they are themed for those things, but like as a group, the cutants from those worlds, you're not like, yeah, those make a real iconic team of characters. No. But this era was short-lived because in 2012, Polly Pocket was discontinued in the US. Now, Polly Pocket did continue and went very strong in Latin America. This is unfortunately harder for me to research because despite 3 years in high school, my Spanish is bad. And even then, trying to research it, like translating and stuff, you get a lot of just like generic Polly Pocket stuff that was sold everywhere. And I'm like, no, tell me about the stuff that was exclusive to this time frame and this Latin American market, because I want to know what was going on there. If you have experience with the Latin American segment of the Polly Pocket brand, I would love to hear your experiences. But as for the US, Polly Pocket lay dormant for several years until she got a reboot in 2018. This was apparently accidentally announced by Garrett Sander in an Instagram post 5 days early. One thing about Garrett Sander, that man loves an Instagram post. He's an iconic toy designer, has done a lot of great stuff, and is also very online. I follow him on Instagram, and he's always on there. He's always posting. But this new era of Polly was a pretty big rebrand, a pretty big marketing push. The brand color is now primarily purple and yellow. Polly has purple streaks in her hair because she's a trendy cool girl. The brand simultaneously does the 90s small compact size and also fashion Polly sized playsets. And to build out Polly's world, they gave her a TV show. This TV series has had 6 seasons and 168 episodes. Each of the episodes are 22 minutes long. It's a lot of Polly Pocket content. It's really way more than I thought it was going to be. The show is produced by DHX Media / Wildbrain. Wildbrain has come up before. They produced Strawberry Shortcake, Berry in the Big City, which, if you remember, I quite liked that show. And this show is, I would say, very similar to Strawberry Shortcake, Berry in the Big City in terms of some of the setup and also the general tone and writing style, which is good because I like it. I will say I think I preferred Strawberry Shortcake because those were shorter episodes, maybe less content overall. They did some specials that were longer, but it was more digestible, I would say. The show was released on Netflix and also YouTube and also Amazon Prime. Different seasons ended up different places. It's kind of confusing. It also seems to be mostly taken off American Netflix. They have like some of season 5 up on there. For the most part, I think everything is on YouTube. There's like the official Polly Pocket YouTube channel, and you can find most of it on there. But some of it you can't. They need to get that ironed out. This show establishes all new Polly lore. So in this show, Polly is an inventor. She's like middle school aged, I would say. And in the pilot episode, her grandma visits. And her grandma has a locket that is broken. But Polly, because she's a clever inventor, is able to fix the locket. And then she realizes that this locket is a magic locket that lets you shrink people and also objects. So you like hold the locket and you're like, tiny time. What was it? I didn't write it down. Oh no. Pocket time, I think. And then you can say go big. And it's not just the person wearing the locket. You could also do it to like other people and stuff, animals. A lot of narrative and comedic potential in this locket. And we learn the lore from Grandma that this locket has been passed down in the Pocket family for generations. And Grandma's old roommate, Griselle Grande, found out about the locket and became obsessed with it. She tried to take it, and in doing so, accidentally broke the locket. So the locket has been broken ever since, I guess, until finally Polly fixed it. I think the grandma was like intentionally not fixing it. She was like, maybe we don't need this power. But she's like, now the locket has a new bearer. I trust you, Polly, to go and have adventures with this magic locket. And so now Polly has adventures with her magic locket and is also trying to keep it safe from Grizel Grande and Grizel's incompetent grandchild, who is Polly's age. Polly has two best friends, Shawnee, who is nerdy and likes to sing, and Lila, who loves fashion. Over the course of the series, new friends get added to the group. So there's a lot of things about this that I find very similar to Strawberry Shortcake, Berry in the Big City. In Strawberry Shortcake, she has her little friend group, and there's the Purple Pie Man, who's an adult man, who's for some reason her enemy, and he has, I think it's a niece, who's Polly's age. They also gain more friends over the course of the season, and there's also, like, in both shows, a character who's formerly kind of a bully antagonist who then sort of becomes reformed and joins the friend group, which is always fun. Not to be overconfident, but I think if you showed me both shows in isolation, I would be able to tell that they're by the same people. And then the show gets increasingly more fantastical. I know that I'm telling you about going on adventures, shrinking down with a magical locket. I know that that sounds fantastical, but it gets more fantastical. We end up meeting and interacting with a bunch of fantasy magical creatures. We can travel to pocket dimensions, and we also find the magical substance that powers the locket, which is Pockite. And now we have these, like, magical crystals. By, like, the end of season 6, they're going to a unicorn dimension to go to some, like, unicorn party event. For contrast, in season 1, they're doing, like, a day at a theme park and, like, helping the neighbor, like, clean up his house by, like, shrinking down the whole house and then painting the outside really quick. Like, it's fantasy and it's fun and it's crazy, but it's not like unicorns. So it's really an escalation over the course of the series, which I don't mind. I guess they were like, what new fun direction can we take this show? We've made 100 episodes already. 1,000,000 hours worth of Polly Pocket. I don't know. I think it's a fun show. I did like it. I didn't watch all of it because it was kind of too much of a time investment. I watched episodes from each season to sort of, like, evolve, because if I were to watch it in order, I'd be, like, still on, like, season 2. But I had a fun time. I think I just mesh well with whoever has, like, the creative direction of these projects. I mean, to be fair, I've only seen, like, these two, Strawberry Shortcake and Polly Pocket by Wild Brain. But the direction that they decide to go for, like, TV shows aimed at young girls, maybe. I think I like their vibe for that. Then, for a period of time, there was discussion of a Polly Pocket live-action movie. This was announced in 2021. It was going to be directed by Lena Dunham, starring Lily Collins, and this was canceled. It seems that Lena Dunham maybe had, I don't know if I would call it creative differences. I think maybe she lost passion for the project, maybe. She wanted to do this project in a way that she was passionate about, where it was, like, really her voice and her vision, and only she could have made it, and felt like maybe that wasn't the direction it was going. And I think also the Barbie movie came out, which is very similar as an idea of, like, taking a Mattel toy brand, doll brand, and, like, make a movie out of it. And that was obviously such a successful phenomenon and such a, like, clear vision from Greta Gerwig. I think Lena Dunham was maybe not I'm not, like, speculating. She talks about this in interviews. I'm not saying, like, I bet she was intimidated by the Barbie movie. No, she said, like, Greta did such a great job with the Barbie movie, and, like, I don't know if we need to do another thing so similar to that. So that whole thing kind of fell through, which it is interesting comparing it to the Barbie movie, because Barbie is such a, like, cultural icon in a way that Polly Pocket is not. Like, no offense to Polly Pocket, she just, like, isn't Barbie. No one's Barbie. Barbie is Barbie. So any toy thing in comparison to the Barbie movie is, like, I think has a lot to live up to and is going to probably fall flat in comparison. Every pitch I've heard sounds just like an SNL skit, like a parody, like, joke of, like, what if it's a Hot Wheels movie, but it's, like, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift? Or, like, what if you do a Polly Pocket movie that's what? What would it be? I don't know. So I'm trying to think of what reboot kids toy stuff has been successful. I mean, not in the same vein as Barbie, not a live action, but, like, Trolls. There's, like, stuff. You could do stuff, but I don't know. A live action toy movie is such a such an interesting proposition. I feel like at the end of every video I make, I'm like, they were going to do a movie and then it got canceled. Or they're maybe going to do a movie, but I'm not confident that it's happening. Making stuff is hard. Making good stuff is hard. Making stuff based on existing beloved intellectual property is hard, you know? I know that this is mind-blowing ideas that I'm sharing with you right now. Hot take, making movie hard. Recently, Mattel has just been going crazy with Polly Pocket nostalgia, which, similar to some other brands like Strawberry Shortcake, it's nostalgia for the oldest possible iteration of the brand, which is interesting because I feel like for something like Strawberry Shortcake or Polly Pocket, there's a strong Gen Z contingent who's nostalgic for the brand as it was in the 2000s, but nostalgia campaigns seem to always be focused on like when the brand first started. So Mattel has been releasing 90s style Polly Pocket compacts that look like the vintage ones, a lot of Polly Pocket style merchandise like clothes, and it's collabs with like cutesy girly vintagey brands, so like Unique Vintage or Cider, and it's very much this aesthetic, me pointing at myself in my kind of flop outfit. In 2024, they did a collab with Airbnb. They made a life-size Polly Pocket compact that you could stay in Littleton in Massachusetts. Ha ha ha, very cute. I mean, I guess this is a cute idea, and whoever got to design it, I'm sure that was a fun project, but this does feel very much like just for influencer photo ops, like this Polly Pocket compact in the middle of a field that's mostly exposed to the open air, and you have to like camp in this weird little tent. I don't know. Strange. And then recently they've been doing a million collaboration little compacts. They've done Harry Potter, which I would have loved as a child with my little Sleeping Beauty compact, but now, no. They've done Friends, they've done Bridgerton, they've done Wicked, American Girl. I'm aware that every time I say a new one, I'm going to have to edit in a picture of it, and I'm creating more work for myself, so maybe I'm going to not read out more of this list. They've done a lot of them. There's a lot, which is interesting. I don't know who they're for. If you have bought one of these, let me know. Let me know what you think of it, if you think the quality's good. I mean, I just, again, I feel like Polly Pocket for me and how I display my collection, like it's not ideal. And there's nothing where I'm like so passionate about it where I'm like, oh my God, I would love a Polly Pocket of this. I mean, I guess if they made a Disney Fairies Polly Pocket, I'd be like, yes! It's like the home tree and a little Polly Pocket figure of like Fira and Prilla and Lily, or a little compact and it's Tinkerbell's house from the movies, if they want to do the movies, which realistically they would be doing the movies, they wouldn't be doing the books. I'm just saying what in my fantasy world they would make that would make me want to buy a Polly Pocket branded collab. Because even they're doing American Girl ones for the 40th anniversary of American Girl, and even those I'm like, I guess they're cute. I don't, like, need them, though. The American Girl ones on the outside look like the books, and on the inside are, like, the school setting and the bedroom setting, which makes sense because that's the furniture that they sold for the dolls, so they already kind of know what it's supposed to look like. But even those, I'm not, like, I'm really dying to have that. I think also what's happening is we're now living in the future where I'm sure designing and making a Polly Pocket compact is so much easier. Because when they were doing it in 1989, they weren't like 3D modeling it in Blender. They weren't 3D printing models or like however it works nowadays. They were like hand sculpting it, and every new compact they designed was a super expensive investment for making the mold, and it was a huge money and time commitment and financial risk every time they did one. Whereas now it's like, you could probably whip one up pretty fast. I mean, as evidenced by them making a million of them. As for Chris Wiggs, he passed away in 2024. He was 74 years old. He'd been retired for some time and had been focusing on his other passion, which was music. Apparently he had wanted to be in a band when he was younger, and so he had retired in France. I believe Chris Taylor also retired in France. They were like, we need to be next to each other. And Chris Wiggs had a music studio, and he made some music that is up on SoundCloud. If I were Defunctland, I would have been using that as background music in the video, and then had like a, oh my God, you've been listening to his music the whole time. This is not a Defunctland video. I don't know if you could tell. That's not really my vibe. But his daughter, Kate Wiggs, is pretty active online. She gives like interviews and stuff. She was interviewed for the book. She seems very proud of her father's legacy, which, you know, who wouldn't be? This little toy that he didn't even pitch until years after became a global phenomenon that still exists decades later. But that's all I have for you today. A big thank you to my patrons and a special shout out to Austin Poston, Checkered Omega, Court, Jillian, Megan, and Melanie Mermaid. I have a Patreon where I post monthly bonus content. I have a vlog on there for free members. It's just another way for you to support me and another place for me to post some content, but absolutely no pressure. Speaking of posting other content, I'm sure some of you are in the comments like, when the world needed her most, she returned. Because I've been gone for 2 months. Whoops, sorry. I do post a lot of short form content. So if you're desperately missing me, you can find me in little 3-minute chunks. I'm Sarah Seraph on all social media if you want to check me out there. As always, all the sources I used will be linked in the description. Feel free to check out Maud Campbell's book. I thought it was really cool. And I don't know how to end a YouTube video. So bye!